Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We're zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth on a great viewer question that is, how do I change? How do I transform my outlook in life? Just sort of on a broad basis. I feel that I've really been damaged by previous relationships, and I just don't have a good attitude, a good outlook. So how can I change things? I think that's a great viewer question because it's so universal, it's so broad-based, and really at some point in your life, you're going to encounter some crisis. You're going to encounter some challenges, some greater than others. And you're going to, maybe even encounter some crisis, which means things get very sketchy very quickly, meaning you find yourself, really in a traumatizing situation or an ongoing traumatizing situation. It's very difficult to just quote unquote snap out of it and have a good positive outlook. So when we talk about, encountering challenges, encountering relationships that present challenges, meaning opportunities not only where you might feel there's an obstacle, but it also presents an opportunity for growth. And growth meaning sort of getting out of the box that you have felt limited by. The conceptualization or how you have hitherto or previously thought about things, people, and yourself, your concept of self. And so if you've been in a number of relationships, situations, circumstances with people who you might consider toxic, overwhelming, manipulative, controlling, less than nurturing. And usually there's a very low energetic vibration known as shame or guilt, which is then imprinted upon you or is absorbed and processed again and again and recycled and rehearsed and sort of memorized in your body. So when we talk really about understanding the subconscious and the role of attitude, attitude is usually fueled by your beliefs. And oftentimes these go unreviewed, unanalyzed, not looked at and sort of not processed at that level of belief. So people are just on automatic pilot. They don't ever give any TLC or understanding to the role of beliefs, particularly those that you have been indoctrinated either through relationships, your culture, even your employer, your school, your family. And the guilt and shame is one of the lowest vibrations of existence, really. If we look at the work of Dr. David Hawkins, Power versus Force, we look at the works of John Bradshaw, The Shame That Binds You, Homecoming, and really how that shame-based sort of sense of self is set up. We have in the Bible, Adam and Eve, they discovered that they were naked. I mean, there's all sorts of parables. This is a known human existence, or experience of existence is that of shame or guilt. So when we talk specifically, like we do here, on toxic influences or manipulation, people are rendered powerlessness, particularly on the exercise and experience of belief. So, and shame, which can be sort of indoctrinated into your sense of self through how you are reflected, particularly by others, otherwise known as an external locus of control. And so if you are around others who are shame-based, meaning they get their power, they get their leg up by sort of manipulating, controlling, getting other people under their thumb, and the good old-fashioned guilt trip, and you should be so ashamed of yourself, and then people have this real downer effect. It's a very low vibration, which means you're not at the other end of the spectrum, which is happy, which is feeling fulfilled, which is feeling light, which is having a smile on your face, having a pep in your step, being able to do a little, shoulder shake, do a little hip shake, that is, that is what we would call a higher vibration. So to get through that, you have to understand that really part of the concept is to understand how those beliefs got indoctrinated to you in the first place. Where did you receive those negative messages? You're not good enough. You're not good enough for me is usually what happens in these relationships with people who can be very controlling or manipulative, such as we see with someone who is narcissistic, covert narcissistic, psychopathic. You know the spectrum. And if you have then been indoctrinated or, ingested that, had that sort of because your guard was down and you did not have a positive or a strong sense of self, then you were not able to deflect it. You're, taking their criticism at face value and you're downgrading yourself. You're living in a state of shame and guilt. So oftentimes that then results in fear, which means fear that, you don't ever have a chance, things aren't ever going to change, I am powerless over my circumstance. All those are then part of that fear base and result in that fight or flight mechanism, which can result in basically analysis paralysis, overthinking, feeling anxiousness, fearful. It is all stemming from that same conceptualized emotion and lack of positive self-belief. So you need to back up and get some distance from the cause that's created this effect and understand what is going on in the background of that person, and to understand that they are just a person. It might be your family, it might be your workplace, your neighborhood, your significant other, a series of friendships that have caused this feeling of shame and guilt. And people harbor that for years. It's a very heavy, weighty emotion. So you need to back off and understand kind of, why this is then a projected emotion. It helps alleviate the source from their own insecurity, from their own fear, from their own anxiety, from their own self-absorbed concern. And what an easier way to do it than just say, here, you handle it. There's a degree of lack of responsibility on the others when they inflict or exploit others with excessive criticism, with shaming, like ignoring, any of the other, verbal, the physical, all the other violations of boundaries that, start to corrupt or hurt your sense of self and your degree of confidence because of that. So realize that there are people who will do that for them to get, released from their own guilt, from their own shame. They're not aware or conscious that they're doing it, but it becomes their coping mechanism. So don't be the target of that. Realize that you don't have to absorb it. You can become, you can become protected, but realize that you are not formed. Your sense of self is not what you have to conform to this treatment or that projection. If you have unconsciously kept harboring that as your sense of self, because based on these, then you're bringing that event with you through all your days. You're kind of reliving the past all the time, and you're not caught up to speed, in the present moment. So you need to look at where you are right now and be willing to let go of those attachments and realize and forgive those individuals, for they know not what they do. They're, they didn't control it. It doesn't mean you have to continue at that same level of existence. To get into a higher, sort of happier state is to look and understand how to get there and what that is. And not that you have to go through a big jump, but to understand what that feels like for you, and then reinforce some more of those happy, high vibration moments. Particularly, when we talk about higher vibration, it's literally a higher energy, meaning you have a little bit of carefreeness. You don't feel so concerned. You're not plagued by guilt. You're not plagued by these lower emotions that are inhibiting you. And, you know, and just a quick, just do a quick, I'm just going to do a quick recap of Dr. David Hawkins, you know, as he goes up the scale. So, you know, shame and guilt are the lowest. And then he gets to apathy and grief, again, is your lower vibrations, and fear. And then as you get through fear, then comes desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason, love, and then getting up to joy and peace, and then enlightenment. So when we talk really about getting into those higher realms, remember that you're going to need to kind of process through all those and not stay stuck in those lower levels. Even though they are fundamental and part of human existence, it doesn't mean you have to spend a high proportion of your energy in those vibrations. To get to joy is to say, I'm not going to let some situation or event create my present moment experience. I am experiencing joy. I take pleasure in joy. And realizing that that is a permittable, oftentimes people feel that they don't give themselves permission to even experience this because they're so plagued by that anchor. It's like an anchor with a balloon. It's kind of like the anchor is always holding them down and the balloon, you know, can only go so far. So you need to kind of cut the string and let that anchor be on its own and allow yourself that lightheartedness. If you haven't given yourself permission to be happy, to smile, to say, oh no, if I've been through this before. The last time I was happy, this happened, you know. And so look and understand the thought process that surrounds those downgrading moments, and realize and saying, you know what, that belongs to the past, so be it. That belongs to the past, so be it. And allow it to be there, but don't allow it to have that really strong connection. Really, in your mind's eye, understand why is it so difficult to let it go, and then to ask yourself, what would happen if I let that go? And then allow yourself to respond, because then you'll be able to understand what some of your own self-limiting beliefs are that are holding you down. And then as you become aware, you can say, okay, I understand with reason that, you know, that's perhaps false evidence appearing real. That is the fear that arose out of that shame and guilt that I then, you know, fed those negative feelings because that person was always around, or etc., or I didn't have the strength to get beyond it. But I know better now. And now that I see, I am going and willing to let go. Give yourself that space today. Let go. Let go. Let go. It is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Have a beautiful day.